the idea of that why we should be moving towards authentic learning, I'd like to sort of explore that a little bit. So, Tim, with ACE leadership, and as you know, I've been there. They have projects as classes instead of projects in classes, which I think is a really innovative and interesting distinction, and the great work that they're doing. For you, how authentic is the work that they're doing, and what has that done for those students?
Um, well, it's authentic enough that in some cases they've had to stop their projects because they've missed deadlines or gone over budget, and they've had to face real-world consequences for that with their clients. Um, and I think they've learned a ton from that they wouldn't have learned otherwise in a classroom setting where the teacher could say, oh, well, we'll just extend the project a couple weeks, or we'll change the project so that you can get it done. But you know, the main purpose of setting up ACE was twofold, one from a school's point of view and one from the community point of view, and I think they're worth stressing. From the school's point of view, it was an acknowledgement that there are a not insignificant percentage of students, many of them boys, but not all of them, that really need to learn by doing. Sitting on their backsides in a classroom, no matter how engaging the teacher is not going to work for them. They've got to test and apply and try things with their hands and try things in teams to see if it works out. And ACE was set up in part out of an acknowledgement that a construction-based school would reach a lot of those kids who would want to learn that way. But the second reason that it was set up was out of a realization on the part of its backers, and it is a charter school within the New Mexico Department of Education. But the backers went to the department and to some leaders in Albuquerque and said, we need a different kind of student either graduating and coming to work for us or graduating and going on to study. And that's a kid who knows how to do stuff with information rather than just knows information, right? So that stress on the doing and that it's real doing and not, as Dana said, pretend doing is very important.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's if anybody ever gets a chance to check out, it's Tony Monfiletto. I think I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Is it correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Tony Monfiletto heads up the ACE Leadership Academy, and if you get a chance to check out some videos and of course go see that school, it's really doing some great things, great work for an underserved population as well. So, Dana, you've worked with teachers across the country. In your book, as I went through it, I noticed one of the great things about it is there's some really great examples of authentic learning experiences. One here from I think it's Jackson County in Kentucky, but across the country. What kind of shift, when teachers make that kind of shift, what does it tend to do for them in their classroom and their students, and what do you see the value for a teacher from their perspective?
The interesting part in finding those examples, which also the program that Ted is involved is also included in the book and the great work that they're doing with their summer academy with the I Challenge You program. But the really interesting piece for me was, as I went to find these examples, what I found was that teachers really were doing this as a natural extension and progression in their own teaching career pathway. As Tim had said, that what they had been doing maybe a decade before just wasn't reaching the students that we have today. So as I was investigating these different examples and the feedback that I was getting from the teachers, it was that, and oftentimes the students really initiated many of the proposals that they were investigating through these authentic learning experiences, as they themselves, and even as young as maybe 6th and 7th grade, saying, we really need to do something about this. What can we do about this? And in one instance, even had a middle school classroom that they applied for and were finalists in a $250,000 grant from the Department of Transportation to make changes in and around their school. Now, they didn't win the grant, but that in and of itself, like Tim said, is that authentic piece where it's not always about an A at the end of the unit test to say that we've mastered this, but middle school students being semi-finalists in a multi-$1,000 grant that just was an amazing experience for them.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Yeah, it is really amazing to see, and I love again about your book how it really sort of grounds it in a real world, hence the title, a real world example of what you've just talked about from chapter to chapter. So I do appreciate that. So Ted, with your program and that connection of schools to businesses and the purposeful way in which they do that, as that's grown, and you and I have talked about it, that it's still a work in progress, as it always is. These kinds of things are always works in progress. But as it's grown, how do you see that impacting the school and the district, sort of as a big picture?
Well, first of all, it impacts the students, and the whole goal is that if we can have students working alongside of our districts working alongside our local businesses, it's really about a community, and we really are in a time where communities need to bind together and to be able to really focus on developing better talent and to be able to have all of our students go through our system with plans and the skills needed to be able to be contributing members to our society and ultimately our communities. And if we're really going to be the community that we dream of being, then we need to have our community and our schools step up to the plate, put our differences aside, and be able to work together. And it's been a pretty powerful experience to see what it's done to the teachers in our community. We have teachers in different buildings working together differently, more collaboratively, and students are interacting across districts now, and it's really, really important. It's really big.
And as a sort of a follow-up, then, when you were when your district and this sort of came to be, what was the pitch then for these businesses to get involved, and how hard was it to get them involved?
You know, I don't know what came first. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? I think the businesses stepped up to the plate. They're the ones that really have to figure out that they need to have a workforce and they need to have talented people in this community in order for them to be competitive on a global market. And they need to partner with education to make it happen. And then we need to be willing to work with them in return and develop and foster that relationship. And the spirit and the energy that it has created is sustainable, and it's definitely life-changing.